Cloud. Okay, so we're recording. Good morning again, everybody. It's so good to have you all here today. It's spring, in case you haven't noticed. And one of the things about spring is there's this explosive growing energy, and that's happening inside of us as well as everywhere you look. And it takes a lot of energy to grow things. And so we're actually going to learn how to conserve some of our energy today because I don't know if everybody else is feeling it, but there's definitely this sort of whirling dervish energy of things opening up and starting up and adding to your schedule and we can get disconnected right from ourselves, hence the cold that I'm recovering from. So let's get on our backs and start the way we usually do, and then we'll do a few other things. So, and for those of you who have aren't with us today but are watching the recording, it'll be helpful if you have two blankets, if you can, and not the squishy fleece kind, but like the sort of stiff, thicker woolen blankets. All right. So let's all get on our backs. And also make sure that the temperature in your house is, or in your room is warm enough, right? You don't want to be chilly when you're doing yoga. All right, so lay yourself back on the floor. Let your feet, I've got my socks on for now, but I'll take them off later. Let your feet roll out like Charlie Chaplin and let your hands be comfortably far from your sides, like, 6 inches a foot at least. And just close your eyes. If you wear glasses, you can take them off. I'm not going to take mine off right now, but I invite you to, because for those of us that wear glasses, when you take them off, it signals to the brain that you are slowing down, that you're not working. So just notice your breath here. Just feel what it feels like to lie on the floor. That's right. Set the world down. What a week. It's a Saturday morning. And even let go of whatever else you have to do later today. Just tune in, like, what's going on? What is your body telling you? What parts of your body are touching the floor? What parts are not touching the floor? Are there any particular little aches or pains or sensations? How are you mentally, right? So we check in with the body, check in with your mind. Is there something that your mind is obsessing about, can't let go of? Just see if you can set it aside for now. You can always pick it back up later. How about your emotions? What emotional state do you find yourself in? There's no judgment about any of this, right? It's just a check-in. It's a sort of, getting a snapshot of where you are. Good. And it's the breath, it's the breathing, the conscious breathing now of longer inhalations, slightly longer exhalations. The breath returns us to ourselves. The breath is the bridge between the outer and the inner. Literally, like the outer air comes in and we metabolize it, and then it goes back out. But it's also the connector, the smoother between the sort of outside existence and this inside existence. So it's just what we're tuning into right now. And of course, whatever's going on inside of you is often what you find outside. And as I said, it's spring. So lots of pollen in the air, lots of beautiful, explosive flowers. Azaleas are so amazing. And yet it asks something. It asks something of nature, of our nature. So just this moment or two longer. Sort of letting go of whatever you don't need right now. And what's left? Love is what's left. God is what's left. So just feel that. And even if you don't feel it, imagine it. Good. Okay. So very gently, bring your left leg, your left knee up onto your chest, interlace your fingers, and place your hands on the top of your shin, or if you've got sensitive knees, you can put your hands behind the knee, sort of on the back of your thigh. Either way, doesn't matter, but use the strength in your arms to sort of gently pull this thigh close and breathe. So this is the little sequence that we begin our Zoom yoga classes with, because it opens up the base of your spine, the root of the spine. And when the root of the spine opens, everything else opens. And you don't really have to do anything, right? This is, in a sense, except for using your arms and sort of holding it here, this is a kind of restorative pose. We're going to be doing some more poses where you put yourself in a position and you don't do anything, you just breathe and receive it. So yeah, you have to use a little strength and intention to hold your leg close, but that's it. All right, now we're going to ask you to do a little bit. Inhale. And as you exhale, bring your nose up towards your knee, just a little bit. Try to keep your shoulders away from your ears. Inhaling, and as you exhale, put your head back down. Nice. Release that left leg, let it slide away from you. Just notice before we go anywhere else, what's the difference now between your left side and your right side? Just identify for yourself, describe to yourself what you're feeling. And then when you're ready, bring the right leg up. Hands on the front of the shin or on the back of your thigh, doesn't matter, but use the strength in your arms a little bit to pull that thigh close, and then just let go. Just be. Just breathe. So our bodies, as in nature, are growing all the time. Our cells are dying and being born and exchanged all the time. We don't do anything. It's just happening. So that's part of, and then there's like this extra, when we're in tune with the seasons, there's this extra push towards growth and new life in the spring. But it's exhausting. Inhaling. And as you exhale, bring your nose up towards your knee. Good. Inhaling here. And as you exhale, put your head back down on the ground. When you're ready, you can release that leg and let it go flat on the floor and just notice like what shifted. Hopefully things feel a little bit more balanced in your hips. All right, now bending both knees. So feet are flat on the floor, close together. Let those knees open and the soles of your feet come together. And again, restorative pose, just let gravity pull. So you'll notice though, what happens is with the weight of your legs being pulled by gravity, there is a very natural curve in your lower back that happens. That's okay, that's good. But just be aware of it, right? Probably before, well, definitely before, when you had your knees up on your chest, your lower back was absolutely glued to the floor. That's okay for it to be off, but we just want to be conscious of that. Just for a moment, why don't you grab your elbows and see if you can lay your hands on the floor over your head. If that's too hard on your shoulders, that's okay. You can open your arms, you can do whatever you want. You can try switching the clasp, right? Because we always do have automatic behavior. You can go to the other elbow and see if that changes things. Should change things. Breathing, good. Just a moment or two like this. Again, sort of just letting yourself go, giving yourself over to gravity,
and receiving the pose. Excellent. Okay, release those arms. Bring your hands now to the outsides of your legs and use some strength in your arms and hands to help those legs come back together. We don't want to overstrain the inner thighs there. Bring both legs up onto the chest and bring your arms out like an airplane, so straight out from your sides, and roll your legs now all the way to the right. Just let them flop. Keep them up close to your chest if you can. And you'll notice that left shoulder is going to maybe want to come off the floor. That's okay. So now this right arm, slide it along the floor until you find your wrist finds your knee. And you can open those legs a little bit so you're not still like in a fetal position. And then the other arm is going to come down along the floor at the same angle. So if somebody were to take a picture of you from above, you'd have, I can't quite do it because I'm right up against the wall, but you should have arms coming out at the same angle. And then everybody turn your head to the right and let yourself just breathe here. This is a very soothing pose. You're not holding yourself up. So if you feel like you're holding yourself up, let go, right? Like don't be holding your knee up in the air, knees. Just give it over. Give it over to gravity. Another natural force along with spring that acts on us. So when we resist gravity, it takes energy. Breathe in. Letting the weight of your body sink into the floor in this position. And each breath, like the breath has got to figure out where to go, right? Because you're twisted. So the breath has to go down into your belly, maybe up into your ribs, behind your collarbone even. Good. Nice and easy. You have the strength in your arms and your abs to bring those knees back up to center. Just going to scooch over here a little bit. Good. So with the knees up to the center, bring the arms back out so they're straight out from your shoulders, and roll both knees to the left, all the way over. Let them go. Okay, if this right shoulder comes off the floor, that's natural. So then the left arm slides along the floor until your left wrist and your left knee meet. And the other arm now slides along the floor so it's at the same angle. So you're not like an airplane. And then you turn your head when you've done all that to the left and breathe. So this side might feel really different. Let that be. Just breathe. Just notice what signals, what information are you getting from your body? Is anything tight? Like right now, all of a sudden, I'm feeling a little tightness in the side of my neck that wasn't on the other side. That's just information. Information is power, because then you can make a decision about what to do about it. It doesn't bother me enough, but I can also send my thought there, my breath there, to see if I can soften, if I can loosen that little tight spot. Just a couple more breaths here. Yep. Breathing in, breathing out, making space within, matching the space without. Good. Okay. Arms, abs, strengthened to bring your knees up onto your chest. And just grab your arms around your outside of your shins and just gently rock back and forth, whatever feels good to you, but this should feel good. Just kind of massaging out that back. Good. Okay. And when you're done, just sort of get still, put your feet on the ground, and however you want to get up, do it, but do it consciously. So I always suggest rolling to one side, doesn't matter what, but getting yourself off the floor nice and easily, and let's come all the way up to standing. So now I'm going to take my socks off so that I have some grip underneath my feet.
So hopefully you can see my whole body and it's part of my head. So let's have our feet hip width apart. Your feet want to feel like they are right underneath your hips. And look down and see if you can make sure the inside edges of your feet are parallel or close to parallel, as close as you can get, right? And just feel your balance in the space. Oh, so you want hips over knees and ankles, shoulders over hips, and your head sort of floating over it all. So just take a moment and sort of line that up. We call it plumb line alignment. So if somebody was to drop a plumb line from, the side of your head, you get a completely nice straight line. Good. Okay. So inhaling, and just bring both arms all the way up. You may not be able to see my hands, but interlace them and press your palms away from you if you can. So press up like you're getting really, really, really long and tall and thin, like a little asparagus spear. That's a good symbol of spring. And then now just gently take your arms over to the left. So just stretch. You're still sort of pushing through. You're getting a great big stretch up through that right side. Breathing, breathing, breathing. Good. Come back to center. Inhaling, push up again. And this time you go all the way over to the right. And just notice what you feel. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Good. Coming back up and let those arms come all the way down. Yeah, like you're moving through water. Yes. Speaking of moving through water, take that left arm and make big circles. Don't let your body move, right? Just keep your shoulders sort of stationary and nice, slow, big circles, as big circles as you can. Just nice and easy. Try not to move that torso. Yes. We want a nice, smooth, kind of oily joint, if you can. I'm getting lots of little pops and cracks too that go. Okay, now this time, when it goes over your head, watch it. So this time you get to move. So as it goes behind you, you can watch it. I hit the wall, but that's okay. You guys can do it. Same thing, 3 or 4 like that. So now you're letting your body move to follow the circle. Inhaling and exhaling. One more, just like that. Good. And now just pause. Just sort of hang there and notice the difference between your left shoulder and your right shoulder. Same thing on the other side. So this time we're not moving. Remember, we're going to start with stationary torso. Nothing in the torso moves, nothing in the head moves, just the arm. And notice the difference, perhaps, between this side and the other side. I actually broke this arm, my humerus bone, when I was a kid, and I've never, ever had the same sense of rotation and openness and smoothness on this side. But that doesn't mean we don't work from where we are, right? Just making nice, smooth circles, not too fast. Good. Okay, now we're going to watch our hand. Here it comes. And this time, now you get to move. As it goes behind you, you can actually look behind you. That's right. So now it's easier, of course, to make great big circles. So do 3 or 4, just like that. Letting your torso twist and move. Maybe one more. Good. And then come back to your centered space, your Tadasana. We call this mountain pose because of the sense of balance, but also rootedness. Think about a mountain, right? It's deep in the earth, and then it rises up, and we only see the surface, but it's being held from so deep below. That's like us. It's like being a tree, right? Our roots are as deep into the earth energetically
as we are tall anyway. Okay, so now let's interlace our fingers behind our back. So like this now. Can you see? So it's like you're clasping your hands, but it's behind your back. You might not be able to have your wrists, your hands together. You might have your wrists apart. And either way, that's okay. But the same thing, we're trying not to disturb the plumb line alignment that we just talked about. But you are going to extend your hands back behind you if you can, or as far as you can, I should say, because this will open your chest up. You can tell we're doing a whole bunch of things here to get these shoulders open, the chest open. So lots of times when we do this kind of thing, we want to sort of counter by sticking our hips out. We're trying to keep our hips and our shoulders in the same alignment as when you're just standing there. And then let the arms reach back from that. And breathe, but notice what it does. It's like all the little fibers of your chest are opening and you're breathing. You're not holding your breath. You're breathing into this extra space. Good. And just release the arms and let them hang. And just sort of notice. It's like this sort of bubbly energy coming off your chest, right? When we sit at computers, we sit like this, right? When we're sad or grieving, we naturally protect our heart. We spend a lot of time in life like this. So we are reversing all of that. Let's do that again. But this time, put the other thumb on top. So if you have your hands clasped, put the other thumb on top and redo the clasp. Again, it's usually going to the less automatic side. Get your sense of alignment with your shoulders over your hips, over your ankles, and let those arms come behind you. You could maybe have your hands together, or you can have your wrists pulling apart. Either way, see if you can get those arms straight and back behind you as far as they'll go. Now, we're going to get rid of the alignment. Go ahead and stick your hips forward and lift your heart up and point your nose to the ceiling and still keep your arms back. And breathe. So we are breaking the alignment intentionally now, just to have another experience. Good. But now bring your hips underneath you, let your arms relax. And come back into your alignment. And so you can feel it every time you come back. It's like, it's got this strength and clarity to it. Good. Okay, now we're going to start bending the other direction. Thumbs in the crease between your thighs and your torso, like the Barbie doll, okay? So those thumbs press back as you start to hinge right there around your thumbs. So you're not bending in the torso, right? It's straight torso, straight legs, although I do want you to keep a slight micro bend in your knees so you're not jamming back into them. And so for just now, just come out so that your torso is perpendicular to the floor. No, parallel to the floor, perpendicular to your legs. So you have flat back and more or less straight legs, but I do want that little micro bend. Good. So just feel what this feels like. It's like, ooh, straight lines. Okay, now, if you can, you might want to bend your knees more. Now you can bend your knees as much as you want as your torso continues to come down. So this will definitely be getting into your hamstrings. And just come on down to wherever you get to so that your torso is sort of lying on your thighs, maybe. And then relax your head and just let it go. Heavy. That's a heavy head. Let it go. Let those arms go. Let yourself sort of dangle here. But you're still kind of resting on your thighs. It's helpful. And so therefore, you can bend your knees as much as you need to. Some of us may not need to bend them quite as much. That's okay. So breathing here. This is your ragdoll pose. Very soothing to the nervous system. Forward bends, which is what we're doing now, are very soothing to the nervous system. Backward bends, right? Back bends, like we were doing a little bit before, those are very stimulating. Okay, get those thumbs back in there, back inside the crease, elbows poke up to the ceiling, and just bring your torso up halfway so that you're parallel with the floor again, the torso is. And then with the knees bent now, elbows up, come all the way back up. Good. How do you feel? You come back into your Tadasana. So you just sort of, oh yes, that's right. Home base, home base. That's what we're doing. We're coming back to home base. Okay. Let's do that again. We'll add some more things. So this time, thumbs in the crease. Same thing, you come forward, micro bend in the knees, so you're not jamming backward, you're not hyperextending. You can pause halfway if you want, or you can come all the way down. This should start to feel a little bit more friendly, right? Because we just spent some time there. Let your arms drop, let your head be heavy, let your shoulders be loose. You can, if you're looking at me, you can see I'm kind of gently shaking myself to make sure that I'm not holding, right? I'm just like a rag doll. Breathing. Good. Okay, now bring your hands onto your back like we were before. Interlace the hands. Doesn't matter which thumb is on top, but just feel which one is on top so you can remember. And then see if you, with your torso on your knees, see if you can straighten your arms off. So now we're doing a forward bend with a little bit of a back bend, although it's, you won't feel it so much. Breathing. Let your head go if you can. Arms away, head heavy, torso on your knees. A lot to think about. Let go. Breathe. Let those hands come back to your back. Release. Come back down. Now find your thumbs in your creases. Elbows point to the ceiling. Come up halfway with your knees bent. And then come all the way up. Good. We just grab cleats for a second. Being upside down, of course, gets all your mucus going. All right. We can do that with the other hand on top. We'll see in just a second. So here we are. Start from our mountain pose, our sense of balance, clarity, rootedness, centeredness, thumbs in the crease. Press them backwards, micro bend in the knees or more as you come forward. Your torso lands on your thighs. You let your hands come down to the floor and rest, and your neck is long and your head is heavy. This time, put your hands again on the small of your back and put the other thumb on top. Hopefully you can remember. From here, without changing anything about your torso, see if you can straighten those arms. You could maybe have hands together or wrists apart. So breathing here. So how can you, it's like your arms are trying to lift up into the sky in the opposite direction from where your head is going. It's kind of a beautiful thing. A lovely stretch. Let that head go. Don't be cranking it, holding it. Yep, let her go. When you've had enough of that, you can release and let your arms come down. And this time, you're going to put your hands on the floor, sort of underneath your shoulders, shoulder width apart, and you're just going to walk your feet back to a downward facing dog. So what is a downward facing dog? Well, your hands are shoulder width apart, your feet are hip width apart. You kind of make a, right now, sort of loosely, upward, sort of upside down V is what you're looking for. So make sure that your ears are inside your biceps. You're looking back towards your feet. Right now, let's come up and let's be way high in our tippy toes, okay? And just to sort of get us warmed up here, bend your right knee and scoot your left heel down, back down towards the floor. That will stretch out your calf and your Achilles tendon. Good. Breathe into it. Bring that one back up. Let's switch now. So you're bending the left and you're stretching the right heel back and down. It may not always, you may not get all the way to the floor. That's okay. Breathing into that side. Yes. And now let's try both. Whoa! And see if you can almost squeeze the mat together between your hands. And what that does is create more space in your shoulders. You don't want to be all scrunched up in your shoulders. Good. Let's come down, rest onto your knees. And if you're comfortable, let's go right into an embryo pose. So you sort of lay yourself out over your knees, or you can open your knees a little bit, your choice. And either way, your torso comes out and your hands are back by your little feet right now. So, another restorative pose. Stay in your embryo pose. Just breathing. So this is such a profound pose. Imagine if we did this, all of us as a society, for 5 minutes every day, right? It is the pose that we basically were formed in the womb, right? It's very soothing to the nervous system. So just kind of let it in. Breathe. Good. Okay. Coming back up, we'll do one more downward facing dog. Come onto your hands and your knees. So this time you have your hands shoulder width apart like you did before, with your fingers spread wide. So you've got these great big puppy paws that are on the floor. And your knees are directly underneath your hips. Tap your toes. And as if somebody, so the first thing you do is you pull your belly button up to your spine. But the next thing, it's like there's a chain attached to your tailbone that's just going to lift you up. Like it just keeps going up and up and up and up. So your arms have to straighten and your legs have to straighten. Stay way high up on your tippy toes first. Kind of get everything in alignment. Get everything straight, and then gently lower your heels down. Long neck, heavy head, looking back. So the reason downward facing dog is both such a basic pose and such a challenging one is that it requires you to open your shoulders and your hamstrings at the same time. That's a lot. So breathe. So how about actually, while you're here, just sort of soften and let it go. Like stay in the pose, but don't work at it. Like, so I'm letting my knees bend and kind of, I don't know, I'm just letting go a little bit. So feel what that feels like. And then now try to straighten the legs, maybe, and work the heels back and down. Try to push the mat, your hands almost together on the mat, which opens the shoulders. Good. Excellent. Come on down and rest. Knees can be together or apart in your embryo pose. Good. So it's helpful to do your building blocks, your basic poses, especially in spring, to get clear about what you're supposed to be doing. And if you have questions, unfortunately, in this format, I can't really answer them during the class, but we will talk afterwards. And so be aware, like, oh, I really don't know what I'm supposed to be doing there, so I'm going to ask Anne about that. So just another breath or two here in your embryo pose. Good. And now, nice and easy, come up. And we're going to do several restorative poses now. So I want you to take one of your blankets, and in the rectangle of your blanket, I want you to take the long side of that rectangle and roll up the blanket. So, there's like a whole class on how to work with your blanket. But that's why you want kind of a nice firm blanket, because if it's fleece, it's a little too squishy. So once you have this long tube, and fairly tight, right? You don't want it to be too loosely rolled. You put it on your mat in the center, and you're going to sit at one end of it. And you're going to lower yourself, basically your spine, is lowering you down, or you're lowering your spine down onto, scooch it so that you have your whole spine and head on the blanket. Okay? It'll feel a little tippy at first. And then when you're ready, you're going to extend your legs and your arms. And unlike me, you're going to have no obstruction here so that your arms can come out from your sides. And I would like have them up around your shoulders. And so we're just going to lie here for a little bit and notice, right? So it's like the entire spine is elevated off the floor and everything else can sort of fall away from it. If you have a foam roller at home, it's great to do this with a foam roller. So just notice what you feel. It's, again, a nice sort of opener for the chest, but it's really for the whole body that sort of drips, right? The restorative poses are about sort of letting the body take the shape in some ways of what's underneath it, because of course gravity is pulling on us. So what does this feel like? If this is uncomfortable in any way, which I hope it isn't, but if it is, of course, you could always bend your knees. But hopefully it's not. You want to have the sense of like, I'm just hanging out here and my body's taking the shape of this tube. So just breathe. So restorative poses, when somebody is recovering from something like a cold, like a heart attack, restorative poses are the way to get back to a sort of sense of stability inside the body. When we're stressed, when too much is going on, restorative poses are the way to go. And they're hard to do because you have to stay there for a little bit. We like to be in motion. Well, I don't know if we like it, but we spend a lot of time in motion, so it starts to feel like that's what's normal. So sometimes stillness and silence is very hard for people, which is why we need to practice it. It's one of the easiest ways to hear God, right, is to be still and silent. And for me, it's my body that I hear God through. So if you're not in tune with your body, then you're kind of screwed, right? So a few more breaths here. Notice that as you stay here, what's different, right? What's pulling? What's more? So with your legs open like this, you might be feeling a little bit of that same lower back sort of curving, which is natural and normal. Feels like my sacrum, that triangular bone at the end of my spine, is really sort of becoming one with the blanket, that in the back of my head. And sort of behind my heart, I'm sort of looking at all of the places where I'm making contact most. So, to come out of a restorative pose, you have to be super conscious. So don't start yet. So just take a breath, right? Collect yourself, and you're just going to very carefully, doesn't matter, bend those knees, roll one direction, move the blanket out from underneath you, set it aside, and roll back. And lay yourself out on the mat in the same way, but without the blanket underneath you. And notice what you feel. Yeah. That's why these are so profound. Like it may seem like nothing. Kind of was nothing. But now feel this there's like new energy, vibration, sensation up and down your spine. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now we're going to do another one, but you got to roll your blanket differently. So carefully roll to one side so you're not disturbing all of the nice things that you just did in the last restorative pose, and to come back to your blanket, unroll it that way. So now you have the rectangle, say, of your blanket. And this time you're gonna, let's see, what are we gonna do? Yeah, no. We're gonna take the short end of the blanket this time, right? I mean, of the rectangle. So not the long end, the short end, and you're gonna roll from there. So a nice tight roll, like you're trying to roll up your sleeping bag, and you're trying to get it all nice and tight. So you roll, you roll, you roll, you roll, you roll. Okay, so this will be a higher roll, right, than the last one, because there was more fabric. Now, this time you're going to put it perpendicular across your mat, and a little bit, maybe about 2/3 of mat, 1/3 on the other side. Now, have your other blanket close by, because you might want it or you might not. This time, and again, I can't see you to adjust you, but you want to you're going to lay yourself back down, and you want the blanket to be sort of where your bra would be. So you're going to lay yourself out. Your chest obviously is super open here. Your arms are going to be out wherever they want to be. Now, if this is too much on your neck and your head, you can grab your other blankie and stick it underneath so you have a little bit of prop up there. You don't want this to be about your neck. This is a very big opening of the chest. And you're just going to lie here. So this wants to be comfortable. It's not about holding something that's miserable. That's not right. So adjust it if it feels uncomfortable, or build up the blanket underneath your head a little bit more. But of course, you do want your head lower than your chest, so that you can have this wonderful sense. So what the blanket roll is doing, of course, is opening the ribs, and this is the most open your lungs are in this pose. So take lots of big, deep breaths here. This is the detox pose, right? It's like fish pose, but you don't have to do anything to hold yourself here. And arms can be, as I say, wherever you want them, wherever it's comfortable. And ideally, not with a wall right next to you, so that you feel impinged. So breathe in here, imagining that your heart, so there's the heart muscle, right? That's off to the side. But the energetic heart center, the heart chakra is right in the center. And both of these things are just open and light. Green is often the color associated with the heart chakra. You might be experiencing another color. And if you are seeing green there, what color green is it? There are a million kinds of green right now in spring. Spring is green. Green is spring. So we're just giving a little extra help to the heart. Now, sometimes, depending on who we are and how we like to do things, we instead of letting our torso sink into the blanket roll, we kind of try to arch over it. If you're doing that, see if you can notice if you're doing that. So how can you not hold yourself over it? How can you sink into it even more and let the blanket and gravity do the work? You don't have to. You're growing, you're changing, you're healing all the time. That's what the body does. Only when we get in the way of the healing does it stop. Our body's constantly striving, urging, straining to get better, to breathe more freely, to move more freely, to repair an injury. just letting this pose in. A couple more big deep breaths here. Like be very intentional here. How much oxygen can you take in? Yep. Okay. Now, getting off, take your time, go slow, bend your knees. Same thing. You're going to roll one way or another, and you're going to get the blanket out from underneath you, however you do it, and roll yourself back onto the floor with no blankets underneath you. Just and put yourself back into the same position, legs out, arms out. And notice what you notice. Extraordinary, right? It's like you haven't got a new set of ribs. All this openness, all this light. Yeah, good. Okay. Without disturbing that, again, we're going to reposition our blankets and our bodies. So go nice and slow. You're going to sit up. And this time, you are going to unroll your blanket. And we're going to fold it like that. So the short edge of the mat folds over. And you're going to take your, let's see, yeah, I think that's right. And take your other blanket and stack them. I don't happen to have two at the moment completely same size blankets, but that's okay. So you're going to create a kind of stack for yourself. And you're going to straighten your legs out along the mat. And you're going to sit nice and tall. So let's just see what that feels like first of all. So my hands are pressing on the floor. And we call this staff pose, right? Because it's basically, you're like straight, like a staff. Legs are straight, torso straight for now. And you've got your blankets here. Now, scooch them up so that they're right up next to your belly. And you're going to start to bend over these blankets. And you're going to let your arms be where you want them to be. They can be on the blankets, they can be on the floor. And we're going to just do what we call a supported forward bend. So you don't have to do anything. And if you have glasses on, take them off because it's really nice. So, now, if your head wants a little support, you might find ways like you could tip up one and like make two fists on top and literally let your forehead be supported by your hands. You can sort of roll one of the blankets up if you need a little bit more height. Well, either way, it doesn't matter. What you want is a sense that your belly is supporting your belly is basically being held by the blankets and your head is being held by your hands. So breathe here. Relax your feet, your legs. They can't go too far from where they are, especially if they're about, hip width apart or less. So breathe here. The pose in Sanskrit, this one is called Paschimottanasana, head to knee pose. And it is one of the most, like the embryo pose, you'll notice the spine's in the same position, soothing poses to the nervous system. As opposed to the one we just did, right, when we were lying on the blanket roll, that was stimulating to the nervous system. That one is the back bends are warming, and this is cooling. The one we're in now. So part of the challenge of restorative poses is making yourself stay there long enough. So I often set the timer on my phone. I'll set 3 minutes. I'll set a minute and a half. I'll set 5 minutes if I really, really need the benefits. And then just try to let go. That's the hardest part. So, another couple breaths here. Notice what you notice. You know, whenever you get into a pose, you sort of, it takes a little while, but you kind of settle in. You kind of receive it, right? You accept the shape. Your body trusts it. That's part of it, is the trusting. Okay, coming out of this one, it's going to be a little, you just want to make sure you are going to support yourself with your hands on the floor. Like you're going to use your hands to kind of walk yourself back up. So you're not asking too much of your back until you get up straight again. And think about that sense of vertical uplift through the spine. It should feel pretty effortless once you get there. It's a little tricky getting there. Okay, now, this last one, it will be sort of our, well, it's kind of our final relaxation, but not. So what I want you to, if you're lucky enough to have a wall nearby, like I do, great. If not, it doesn't matter. We can do it, you can do it either way. But if you do have a wall, you're going to take your folded blankets and put them up against the wall. And you're going to come up against the wall. It's very tricky getting in. You have to kind of get your butt right up against the wall and then roll over. It's kind of awkward. And then get your, so that your lower back, mid back, lower back, and legs are on the blankets and the legs are up the wall. Now, if you're not by a wall, doesn't matter. You can put the blankets in the middle of your mat. And let's see, how am I going to do this? I guess like this. So then you sit on top of the blankets, just like you're at the wall, and you lower yourself back down, and you just lift your legs up to the ceiling. And if you get them in the right spot, it should not feel like you're holding them there. You're just letting them be. So either way, you're either with your legs up the wall or your legs in the air, but your hips are elevated by your blankets. And this should feel good. So treat this like it's your final relaxation. We'll have just a minute to lie flat afterwards. But we're going to be here for a little bit. We're going to be here for 3 minutes. So take your glasses off if you've got them on. If your feet are cold, it's helpful to have socks. But so just hang out here. So any kind of inversion, so healing, so helpful, right? Like imagine that the blood reverses the flow, right? Generally, your heart's got to pump blood against gravity to go through your whole body. Now you've got gravity working with you. And it's like all the blood comes out of your legs and sort of pools in this center of strength, right in your abdomen. And then your heart is actually a little bit lower than your hips, which is great. And your head is on the floor. Very, very soothing pose. So you just hang out here, breathing, receiving. Helps to have the hips elevated, and elevated by something that's comfy, right? But you can use yoga blocks, you can use beach towels. So now, let yourself get quiet, really quiet inside. You might even feel the growing, the life force that's inside of you now that you're still. One more minute. So nice and slow, whether your legs are on the wall or in the air, just gently bend your knees and let your knees sort of rest on your chest. And however you can do it, you want to scooch the blankets out from underneath you. So you may have to roll from side to side. And if you're up against the wall, you're going to have to shift your body so that you can then put your feet on the floor and then lay yourself all the way out again. So here you are, how we started the class. Notice what's different. What do you feel? What is your body telling you? You'll probably feel the blood return to your legs. Let your body equalize. But you did such a wonderful thing of bathing your brain, bathing your heart with all that blood and energy. So now just beginning to wiggle your fingers and your toes, and perhaps rolling your head gently. You're going to sort of move back into your body in motion the way your body needs you to. So just sort of listen. What does it need? What does it want? Maybe it needs to stretch. Maybe it needs to pull your legs into your chest. Just give yourself a moment now, sort of this wonderful attentiveness to your body. Give it what it needs as we begin to sort of wake it up again. And then, as you're ready, you'll roll to one side. And I invite you to pause, whatever side you roll to, just pause here. And bring this lovely sort of energy with you. And then stop and let it settle again. Making a pillow with your arm, sort of letting your arm be propped up. And then after you've had 3-4 breaths, maybe on your side, keeping your eyes closed, see if you can help yourself come back up to any seated position. Doesn't matter what it is. It can be on a blanket, off a blanket, wrap a blanket around you, whatever feels right, but for sure hang on to this lovely sense of centered spaciousness. That's what we've done together. That's what you have done for yourself today. You're like a new spring plant that has been
rained on, and now the sun is coming out, and you're being fed exactly what you need to grow, to be healthy, to be whole, to become. So, bringing your hands together now in front of your heart. It is the light, the divine in you that helps me recognize the divine in me. Namaste. Okay. We'll stop the recording.